Dancing Chicken. So this goes back to, I don't know, I'm going to say 1980, 1981. My family took a trip to, we're from Chicago. And my father, his business was in New Jersey, the North American headquarters for BMW, the car. He was a regional parts manager for BMW, and so we went out there. We stayed at a friend of his, one of his work buddies, a guy named John, and we stayed at their home, which was really unusual because we traveled with my father. We always had a hotel room. So we stayed with this guy who was really friendly. My dad was buddies with him. He was a little younger than my dad. They didn't have kids, but we went to Chinatown with them. We ate at this Chinese restaurant. Um, I remember really, really enjoying that. It was kind of like we parked and walked up, and it was like we went down these stairs, almost like in a back alley, and like they opened this door, and it was under, it was in the basement. This restaurant had no windows, and it was all white tile, the walls, with like maybe fluorescent lighting. So it was very almost sterile. And I remember we had a large table, and that they kept coming out and serving us tea, and which I drank a lot of that tea. They must have really not been happy with me, but they served us food like family style, like bowls of food, and I remember everything was really delicious, and I had never had this type of food before, so it was spectacular. This dinner, this Chinese experience, this American Chinese food. So we finished up with that, and we headed out, and the guy said, this John guy said, well, there's this arcade. I'm sure the kids would love to check out this arcade. We go in the arcade, and there it was, this larger than a normal arcade game. Plexiglass, huge plexiglass windows, and a chicken, a live chicken. The first one that I played was the dancing chicken, and you would put a quarter in. My recollection of it was this light came on, and I believe a sliding door lifted up and a chicken comes out. And he is pecking at this cardboard piano, which begins to play this wacky, demented Chinese piano music. And the chicken gets on this circular disc, which was balanced, I believe, and it kind of would. That's what I remembered it, and he kind of walked side to side, to dancing chicken. And at some point, there was a little, like a metal trap, and some corn came out. You could hear it, and then it like bounced around in this, and the chicken made a beeline, ran. So I almost, how I seem to remember it was that there was two rooms. That it was like the room with the sliding door and the feed tray and the piano, where he came out, pecked at the piano, and then exited, got on this platter, and did his dance. And then when the food came out, the corn, the dance was over. The music still played. He consumed the corn, ran into the door is still up, runs into his trap door and disappears while the music plays out. And then the light would shut off and the door closed. The dancing chicken. I mean, there were people in the arcade. There were locals in there, and they were all, you know, playing Space Invaders or Asteroids or Defender or whatever game of the time that was popular. Nobody was putting money in. Only the tourists. So these chickens were they didn't look like they had lived a very good life. They were kind of hungry, kind of cold in there. So the next one was called Beat the Chicken Tic-Tac-Toe. And the chicken has what's known as the thinking booth. The thinking booth enables it so, well, the chicken can't see what you're doing because you're on the outside pressing a matrix for buttons, 3 in a row and 3 down for tic-tac-toe. And the chicken can't see what you're doing, and by proxy, you can't see what the chicken's doing because of the thinking booth. It's a piece of sheet metal that obscures your view for where the chicken will play. So you put a quarter in, the chicken takes the first move, and he begins pecking rapidly at this something that's obscured by the thinking booth, which is a singular button. You're playing a computer program, tic-tac-toe. So you go through the motions, cat game. It's fairly impossible to beat the chicken. But nonetheless, they had these live chicken video games in this arcade in New York. Now, I just spoke with my brother, and he said that they're going to New York for a bicycle riding vacation. He loves to ride bicycles with his wife. That's what they do. And they are going in search of the dancing chicken. I had to let him know. I looked it up. I sent him an email, and I'm like, I don't think it's there anymore. I think it's gone. So that footage at the beginning of this I found on a Reddit discussion. Someone had put that. That's not my footage, but this is a story I used to tell quite a bit when I was a kid, and it was one of those stories that people wouldn't really know how to respond to it. It's kind of bizarre. It doesn't seem very realistic. But there's a director named Werner Herzog who made a movie called Strozek. Strozek is one of the saddest movies I've ever seen. It's about a guy who's kind of a failure in Europe, and he meets this girl, and she's a prostitute. They come over here and try to establish a life under the American dream. Like, they get a credit card, they get a trailer, they're buying furniture, and all of that kind of rapidly falls apart. And he ends up, I think he tries to rob it's like a failed stick-up, and he ends up taking his own life on a merry-go-round. He's on a Ferris wheel. He goes to this place, and he's got a gun. He goes in there, he plays the dancing chicken, and they show that. They really document it. So if you're curious about the dancing chicken, you can see it. It's in Strozek, although I would not recommend you watch that whole thing. What I also heard was Ian Curtis was a musician who committed suicide. He was from a band called Joy Division. Supposedly that was what he watched. He watched that, and then he killed himself. I mean, the guy kills himself in the movie too. That's the end of the movie. Is you hear the rifle go off while he's riding a Ferris wheel. It's Werner Herzog is great, but he went over the line on that one. So yeah, I was reading about it tonight. They had a casino. There was or is a business where these guys maintain these chickens that are able to play it. They rent you the game. They had it as an attraction at this casino. People tend to really get uptight about it. People write letters to PETA and this sort of thing. There's the Dancing Chicken is not. It's not really easy to get away with hosting one of these machines in 2021. But I believe in South Dakota at the Reptile Gardens, they still have a half a dozen. There's a basketball chicken game, all kinds of games you can play against trained animals, supposedly at the Reptile Gardens in South Dakota. So there is a movie, honey. There's a movie called The Lost Arcade, which is about that Chinatown Family Arcade, which was the place that I originally saw them at. And I think that's just about it as far as information on the Dancing Chicken. I I had told this story to my friend, and his brother had a zine, a punk rock handmade. Hi, Kita. Would you like some treats? And he he asked me to tell his brother this story. The guy who um, created this zine. I told him the story, and he said, "Can you write that up exactly how you told me, and I will publish it in this zine." So I wrote it up and gave it to him. I don't ever remember seeing it. I don't know if he used it. Um, so yeah, if you're out there and you have a zine, a punk rock zine from Chicago that tells the story of the Dancing Chicken, please let me know. I'd love to get a copy of that. I'd love to read how I told the story back in 1983. It would have been somewhere around then, 82 maybe. So that's the Dancing Chicken, and I will talk to you guys later. I got to take care of this. I got a hungry cat here.